A doctor leaned toward me with trembling hands and whispered, "Keep your wife away from your daughter." That single warning shattered everything I believed about the people I loved most. But before I tell you how our lives unraveled, allow me to start where the nightmare began. My name is Marcus Hale. I am 67 years old, a retired cartographer who once spent decades drawing the shapes of distant lands and turning chaos into order. In my work, clarity was everything. If a single line curved the wrong way, the entire map lost meaning. I never thought I would live long enough to see my own life turn into a landscape I no longer recognized. My wife, Evelyn, was once the most brilliant woman I knew. She taught literature for more than 30 years and could recite entire passages of poetry from memory. She used to read aloud to me at night, her voice warm and melodic as she breathed life into every stanza. But 3 years ago, small cracks began to form. At first, it was misplaced glasses, repeated stories, missed appointments. I told myself it was normal aging. I clung to that explanation like a man clinging to a drifting piece of wood in rising water. Then came the morning she could not remember the ending of a novel she had taught for 2 decades. She stared at the last page as if seeing it for the first time. The woman who once held entire libraries in her mind was suddenly struggling to hold a single thought. That moment was when fear first took root in me, a cold and steady fear I pretended not to feel. Our daughter Serena stepped in quickly. She had always been poised, polished, and composed, a woman whose presence filled a room before she ever spoke. She worked as a financial consultant, dealing with clients whose fortunes rose and fell in silence behind closed doors. When Evelyn began declining, Serena started visiting more often. She drove in every weekend, her confident stride echoing through our hallway, her perfume lingering long after she left a room. She insisted on helping with medication. She reorganized the pillboxes, took over scheduling doctor visits, spoke for us when we did not ask her to. She said she was doing what any devoted daughter would do. And at first I believed her. She began taking pictures of our antiques, sometimes asking about their history. She made casual comments about property deeds, trusts, and long-term planning. She wondered aloud whether Evelyn should assign a medical proxy sooner rather than later. When I tried to redirect the conversation, she would smile gently and say, "Dad, I only want to make sure you are both protected." But her eyes always lingered a moment too long, and there was something in her expression I could never quite decipher. A quiet calculation, a watchfulness. Still, I said nothing. I had spent a lifetime believing that structure, responsibility, and logic guided my family the same way they guided a mapmaker's pen. I did not want to imagine anything darker. Last month, Evelyn's confusion intensified. She would forget who called her earlier in the day. She would ask the same question 3 or 4 times. She sometimes looked at me with a distance that made my heart feel as if it were splitting in two. Serena insisted we see a neurologist she had researched extensively. She handled all the arrangements and drove us there herself. The clinic was quiet, the air conditioned to an almost sterile coldness. Dr. Rowan, a man in his early 50s with tired eyes and an unsteady way of handling his pen, greeted us with polite warmth. He asked Evelyn a series of questions. "What year is it? Who is the head of government? What season are we in?" The answers stumbled out of her like loose stones falling from a wall. She confused decades. She mixed names. At one point, she laughed nervously, as if trying to brush away the uncertainty in her own mind. Dr. Rowan made notes quickly, almost too quickly, his brow furrowing deeper with each response. Serena stood behind Evelyn, watching closely, her arms folded, her expression unreadable. When the doctor asked for a detailed list of Evelyn's medications, Serena answered for us before I could open my mouth. She said she handled everything. She said it lightly, almost proudly, as if she were presenting perfect proof of her reliability. Dr. Rowan's pen stopped mid-stroke. A moment later, Serena excused herself to take a call. I did not hear her phone ring. The door shut softly behind her. The doctor turned toward me. His posture changed. His hands trembled. His voice lowered to a whisper that felt like a gust of icy air. "Mr. Hale, You need to get your wife away from your daughter immediately." My breath left my body in a single, wrenching exhale. I stared at him, stunned, waiting for some kind of explanation that made sense. But the only thing I felt in that moment was the quiet certainty that my life had just stepped off the edge of the map. For days after the appointment, Dr. Rowan's whisper replayed in my mind with relentless clarity. It clung to me in the quiet moments, in the sound of Evelyn humming absently in the kitchen, in the soft click of Serena's heels across our wooden floors. Each repetition carried a new weight, a deeper layer of dread. I wanted to dismiss it as paranoia, as the overcaution of a doctor who saw too many strange cases, but something inside me refused to let it go. A warning like that did not come without reason. Evelyn's decline had accelerated in the weeks before the appointment. She had once moved through our home with gentle confidence, knowing every corner of every room as intimately as her own heartbeat. Now she would pause at doorways as if they led to unfamiliar lands. She asked repeatedly whether we had already eaten dinner. She mixed up the names of her former students and sometimes forgot the age of our son Adrian. Each moment chipped away at the woman I loved, and I kept telling myself it was simply a painful part of aging. But even that lie became harder to hold on to. Through it all, Serena moved with flawless precision, always arriving at the perfect moment, always stepping into the spaces where I hesitated. She organized Evelyn's medications with practiced ease. She arranged doctor appointments without consulting me. She spoke to pharmacists as if she were the only one capable of understanding the complexity of her mother's needs. When I suggested that maybe we should get a second opinion, she gave me a look filled with something close to pity. "Dad," she said softly, "you have been under so much stress. Let me handle this. You always taught me to take responsibility when you could not." It was a clever thing to say. It made me feel weak for resisting her help. Yet every time she opened the pillbox, a strange uneasiness prickled along my spine, as if something hidden lingered beneath the smooth surface of her reassuring smile. One evening, while I prepared dinner, I heard Serena in the living room, speaking quietly into her phone. Her voice was controlled, low, almost urgent. I could not make out the words, but the tone unsettled me. When she noticed me approaching, she ended the call abruptly and slipped her phone into her pocket with a practiced motion. Her expression returned to its usual serene composure, but a faint tension remained around her eyes. "Work call, Dad. Nothing for you to worry about." Her explanation floated in the air between us, unconvincing yet unchallengeable. I wanted to ask more, but I felt the ground shifting beneath me, as if questioning her directly might unravel something far larger than I was prepared to face. That night, as we sat down to dinner, Evelyn lifted her fork halfway to her mouth before stopping. She stared at the plate, confused. It was a simple dish she had cooked herself countless times, but she looked at it now as if it were a puzzle. Serena reached over instantly, her voice soothing. "It's all right, Mom. You have had a long day. I will help you." The way Serena placed her arm around Evelyn, the way she maintained eye contact with her instead of me, made me feel like a visitor in my own home. Evelyn leaned into her daughter with a trust that should have comforted me. Instead, I felt something tightening in my chest. After dinner, I entered the study to review a small consulting project I had taken on. Mapping was no longer my profession, but it still gave me comfort. Yet tonight, I could not focus. My mind wandered back to every odd moment over the last year. I remembered Serena showing up unannounced on a weekday, saying she happened to be in town. I remembered her suggesting that I extend a work trip to take some time for myself. I remembered the way she reacted with defensiveness whenever I wondered aloud whether Evelyn's medication should be reviewed. Then there was the financial storm she had weathered. Her investment partnership had collapsed in a scandal involving mismanaged client funds. Rumors swirled that she owed significant restitution. She dismissed the rumors with icy confidence, claiming she had been framed by an ambitious colleague. Even so, I had seen her hiding letters under magazines, saw the tension in her shoulders when she opened her emails. Whenever the topic arose, She changed the subject with practiced speed. A subtle but undeniable thought took shape in my mind. What if her concern for Evelyn was not as pure as I believed? What if her sudden devotion was built on something far more fragile and dangerous? I shut the laptop, unable to work. The house felt strange, as if the walls themselves held their breath. I walked down the hallway and paused outside the bedroom where Evelyn slept. She lay curled beneath the blankets, her breathing steady. I longed to protect her, to keep her safe from the fog that had stolen her mind. But I could not shake the doctor's warning. Keep your wife away from your daughter. As I stood there, Serena passed behind me silently, on her way to the kitchen. I felt her presence before I heard her. She placed her hand gently on my shoulder, her touch warm and reassuring. Try to get some rest, Dad, she whispered. Mom needs you strong. It should have comforted me. Instead, it chilled me. Something about the softness of her tone, the precision of her words, felt rehearsed, almost as if she were performing a role for an audience only she could see. In that moment I realized something terrifying. I no longer knew who my daughter truly was. 3 days after the appointment, tension clung to the house like a low mist, thickening with each passing hour. Evelyn drifted between moments of lucidity and confusion. Sometimes speaking clearly, sometimes forgetting where she was entirely. I tried to follow Dr. Rowan's warning. But how does a father distance himself from his own daughter without proof? How do you step back from someone you raised, someone whose laughter once filled your home, simply because a doctor whispered a sentence you do not know how to process? Serena seemed even more attentive than usual. She arrived early one morning carrying a bag of groceries and a stack of files for her work. Her movements were crisp, efficient, and practiced. She prepared tea for Evelyn, then moved through the kitchen with a rhythm that felt too deliberate, as if she were performing care rather than giving it. Every so often, her hand would drift to her purse, tapping it lightly, almost protectively. I noticed it each time. Every tap felt like a quiet reminder of something she wanted to keep hidden. That afternoon, while Evelyn rested, Serena announced she would take her mother to a spa appointment she claimed would help with stress and circulation. I watched them leave, Serena guiding Evelyn with gentle firmness. She glanced back at me briefly. Her expression was pleasant, but her eyes held something unreadable. A flicker of calculation beneath the warmth. When they returned, hours later, Serena appeared unsettled. Her hair, usually perfect, was slightly out of place. She kept rubbing her wrist as if something had agitated her. She guided Evelyn upstairs and insisted she rest immediately, then went straight to the bathroom. I heard the shower turn on. The sound filled the house, steady and unbroken. Water cascading against tile, steam rising. A barrier of sound separating Serena from the rest of us. For reasons I could not explain at that moment, my heart began to pound. The thought came not as a choice, but as an instinctual pull. A deep and disturbing certainty. Go look. Now. Her purse sat on the dining table, open just enough to reveal a silk scarf draped over the top. The same scarf she had been carrying for weeks. The same purse she touched every time she moved. I stood at the edge of the table, my breath shallow. I felt guilt coil through me. A father should not invade his daughter's privacy. A man should trust his child. But the whisper from Dr. Rowan had already carved a fissure in that trust. The shower continued running upstairs. My window of opportunity was unbearably brief. I opened the purse. The scent of her perfume rose quickly, crisp and floral. Inside were the usual items: wallet, lip balm, receipts from a coffee shop I did not recognize, a leather-bound planner filled with color-coded notes. None of it strange, none of it dangerous. But the scarf was wrapped around something small and cylindrical. My hands trembled as I lifted it out. An amber bottle, unlabeled except for a torn strip showing only fragments of a name, a classification number, and a warning. For veterinary sedation use. Handle with caution. My breath vanished. I tried to steady myself. The bottle felt heavier than it should, as if its weight contained something more than the liquid inside. The pills were pale, almost chalky, each stamped with a code I did not recognize. The code was not from any human medication I had ever seen. I remembered Dr. Rowan's words: substances that mimic dementia, substances used for animals, substances that destroy memory slowly, subtly, and convincingly, exactly like Evelyn's decline. Fear surged through me, sharp and electric. But then something even stranger caught my eye. A folded slip of paper tucked beneath the scarf. I opened it. It was a receipt, but not from a store. It was from a private supplier specializing in pharmaceuticals used for transporting exotic animals. The quantity ordered aligned too closely with the amount missing from the bottle. My hands went cold. Why would Serena have access to something like this? How did she even obtain it? Why would she hide the source, as if she already knew it was dangerous? The shower upstairs clicked off. Panic shot through me. I replaced everything exactly as it had been. The scarf, the bottle, the purse clasp. I stepped back moments before Serena descended the stairs, wrapped in a towel, steam drifting behind her. She noticed me standing by the table. Her eyes flickered, narrowing for the briefest second. "Dad, you look pale. Are you feeling all right?" Her voice was warm, kind, concerned. But now every soothing note rang false, like a lullaby sung by someone pretending to love the child they were putting to sleep. I swallowed hard. "I'm fine," I said. But I was not fine. Nothing was fine. Because the truth was unavoidable now. Evelyn's suffering was not a mystery of age or fate. It was something crafted, maintained, and hidden. And the person who had crafted it was living under my roof. That night I lay awake listening to the quiet sounds of the house, the creak of settling wood, the low hum of the refrigerator, the faint rhythm of Evelyn's breathing beside me. Yet beneath those familiar sounds lurked a new silence, a silence thick with suspicion and fear. The bottle in Serena's purse had shattered the last remnants of my denial. Now I needed proof, something undeniable, something that would either confirm my worst fear or free me from it forever. The next morning, while Serena was out running errands, I approached Evelyn's pillbox with trembling hands. Each day's compartment held an assortment of tablets, neatly arranged in Serena's precise order. Among them were the small, pale pills with the unfamiliar markings. I held one beneath a magnifying glass, comparing the code to what I had seen on the veterinary bottle. It matched perfectly. My heart pounded with such force I felt it in my throat. I removed every suspicious pill and replaced them with similar-sized vitamins. They were harmless, tasteless, and visually close enough that Serena would not detect the substitution immediately. I returned the remaining tablets to the amber bottle I had hidden in my desk drawer, then closed the pillbox just as Serena's car rolled into the driveway. She entered the house carrying 2 shopping bags and a smile that felt as staged as a photograph. "Mom, I brought you chamomile tea. It helps with relaxation." She set the bags down and glanced toward the pillbox. I forced myself to remain calm. The air felt charged, as if a storm hovered just outside the walls. Yet Serena made no move to inspect the medication. Instead, she fussed over Evelyn and talked about a new health regimen she wanted to try. The first day without the sedative brought only subtle changes. Evelyn seemed slightly more alert, less foggy. She recognized the tune of a song on the radio and hummed along for several seconds. It was the longest fragment of memory I had seen from her in months. My chest tightened with hope and dread. Hope that she was recovering. Dread that recovery proved she had been harmed deliberately. By the second day, the difference was unmistakable. I found Evelyn in the kitchen, staring out the window. She turned when I entered, her eyes clearer than I had seen them in a long time. "Marcus," she said, her voice steady. "The birds are back this season. Do you remember how we used to count them every spring?" It took me a moment to absorb the meaning of her words. She not only recognized me without hesitation, she recalled a tradition from years ago. My knees nearly buckled from the force of relief. "Yes, sweetheart," I answered softly. "I remember." She moved around the kitchen with a grace I thought she had lost forever. She reached for ingredients and began preparing breakfast. When she cracked the eggs and stirred them with confident rhythm, tears filled my eyes. I had promised myself I would not cry in front of her, but witnessing her return felt like witnessing sunlight after years of clouds. By morning of the third day, the transformation was undeniable. Evelyn walked into the living room, holding a crossword puzzle she had completed halfway. "Look at this," she said brightly. "I think I remember more than yesterday." She looked at me with a question forming in her expression, a question she seemed afraid to speak. "Marcus, why do I feel so clear? What changed?" Before I could answer, the familiar sound of tires crunching on the gravel driveway cut through the air. Evelyn stiffened. Serena's silver sedan pulled in earlier than expected. "That is strange," Evelyn murmured. "She never comes this early." My heart thudded with icy dread. Serena had not seen Evelyn in her newly restored state. If she noticed the sudden clarity, she would know something had interrupted her careful design. As Serena stepped out of her car, her posture poised and deliberate, I turned to Evelyn with urgent intensity. "Listen to me. I need you to act confused. Act the way you have for the last few years. Please. Just for now." Evelyn stared at me, bewildered. Why would I pretend I am lost again? Serena's footsteps approached the door. I had no time to explain. I touched Evelyn's cheek gently. "Please. It is not safe otherwise." The door opened. Serena entered, with her usual polished smile. Carrying a paper bag from a deli she claimed Evelyn loved. "Morning, Mom," she called cheerfully. "I brought lunch from your favorite place." Her gaze moved toward the breakfast dishes, the crossword on the table, Evelyn sitting upright and lucid. I watched her smile falter ever so slightly. A flicker of uncertainty crossing her features. "You look different today, Mom," Serena said slowly. "Are you feeling all right?" Evelyn glanced at me briefly, then at her daughter. She hesitated, her expression torn between fear and defiance. I forced myself to breathe, waiting for the moment when everything would break open. Serena moved toward the pillbox. "Mom, you should take your medication now. It helps you stay steady." But this time I stepped between her and the counter. "She does not need those pills." Serena's hand froze in midair. "Dad," she said gently, almost soothingly. "Of course she does," but her eyes were no longer soft. They were sharp, suspicious, and dangerous. Serena's hand hovered in the air, suspended between the pillbox and her tightening smile. For a moment, the kitchen fell into a strange, heavy stillness. Even the air felt motionless. I could hear Evelyn's shallow breaths behind me, and my heart thudded so loudly I feared Serena could hear it too. Slowly, Serena lowered her hand and tilted her head, studying me with a mixture of confusion and concern that felt almost rehearsed. "Dad," she said softly, "why would you say something like that? You know, Mom needs her medication." Dr. Rowan said very clearly that. "What medication, Serena?" My voice was low, but steady. I stepped closer to the table, placing myself between her and the pillbox completely. "Tell me exactly what you have been giving your mother." Her eyes flickered, a brief misfire of panic, quickly masked. She let out a breathy laugh. "Dad, you are exhausted. I think we should all sit down and talk calmly. You have been so stressed since Mom started declining, and I know it is taking a toll on you too." I reached into my pocket. The amber bottle felt like a burning coal against my palm as I pulled it out and held it up. The label fragment and the unusual code glinted under the morning light. Like this, the transformation in Serena's face was instant. The color drained. Her lips parted in a soft gasp she did not manage to cover. Her eyes darted toward Evelyn. Then, back to the bottle. When she spoke again, her voice was thin, trembling. "Dad, where did you get that?" "It was in your purse." A long, brittle silence followed. Serena sank into the nearest chair, her shoulders trembling slightly. Tears pooled in her eyes, then spilled over, running down her cheeks in quiet streaks. She pressed a hand to her face as though the weight of everything had suddenly become too much to hold. "I never meant for it to go this far," she whispered. "I swear I did not." Evelyn inhaled sharply behind me. She had remained silent until that moment, her hands clenched in her lap. Hearing her daughter admit anything at all cracked something inside her. Serena lifted her head and looked at her mother. Her expression collapsed. "Mom, I only wanted to help you. You were so anxious and confused, and Dad was always traveling for his consulting jobs, and I thought if I could just make things easier, things would settle down." "Make things easier," I repeated quietly. "By drugging your mother with medication meant for animals. I do not expect you to understand," Serena said desperately. Everything was falling apart. My career, my finances, everything I worked for. I was drowning. I needed time to figure things out without everyone asking questions about you. I thought if I could just slow you down, maybe I could manage everything else until things got better. "Slow her down," I repeated, stunned by the absurd cruelty of the phrase. "She is not a task. She is not an obstacle. She is your mother." Serena's face twisted with anguish. I know it sounds horrible now. But when you are desperate, you convince yourself you are making the right choices. I only wanted to help for a little while. Then when things got worse, I could not find a way out. Every time I tried to reduce the dose, she would get clearer, and I panicked. I stared at her, unable to reconcile this woman with the daughter I had raised. Every memory of her childhood collided violently with the truth unfolding before me. But it was Evelyn who finally broke the quiet. Serena, her voice trembling, her words quivering with heartbreak. "Why would you do this to me?" Serena covered her face again. It was like listening to a child trying to explain a mistake far beyond childhood. "Mom, I was scared. I had debt collectors threatening me. People from my old firm calling for restitution. I did not want to burden you or Dad with it. I just needed more time. I thought if you seemed incapable, maybe we could adjust some things financially and I could get back on my feet." "So you decided to create incapability," I said sharply. Serena winced. "I was wrong. I know that now. I never wanted to hurt her. I just needed options." I felt something cold settling in my bones. "You did more than hurt her. You stole 3 years of her life." For a moment, Serena's tears slowed. Her breathing steadied. I saw something dangerous slip across her expression, something sharp, something calculating. Her voice became smooth again. Too smooth. "Dad, you are jumping to conclusions. You found a bottle with no context. You are accusing me without proof. That bottle could have belonged to anyone. Maybe you misread the label. Maybe Mom's decline is natural aging. You need to calm down before you say things you cannot take back." She reached into her purse and pulled out a folder I had never seen before. "I already spoke with a legal advisor," she said calmly. "If you keep making these kinds of accusations, there are processes to assign guardianship. The court will decide who is competent to make decisions. And I promise you, I will do whatever it takes to protect Mom." Her meaning was unmistakable. She was not protecting Evelyn. She was protecting herself. I felt heat rise in my chest, not from anger but from something deeper. "Get out. Dad, you are not thinking clearly. Get out of this house, Serena. Now. And do not come back, unless I say otherwise." Her face crumpled for an instant, anger and fear warring behind her eyes. She grabbed her purse, her files, her keys. At the doorway she paused and looked back. "This is not over," she said softly. "You are making a mistake." Then she left, leaving the scent of her perfume and the ruins of our trust hanging in the air. When the door closed, Evelyn collapsed into my arms, sobbing, and I realized there was no turning back from the truth anymore. The house felt impossibly quiet after Serena left, as if her absence had created a vacuum. Evelyn sat beside me on the couch, her hands trembling in her lap. Her eyes were swollen from crying, yet clearer than they had been in years. The return of her mind felt like a miracle, but the circumstances behind it turned that miracle into something sharp and painful. She whispered my name softly, as if afraid someone might hear us. "Marcus, what do we do now?" For the first time since Dr. Rowan's warning, my answer came without hesitation. We protect you. We protect us. And we find the truth. That evening, I called Colton Reeves, a local attorney known for handling complex family disputes. He answered on the third ring. His voice was steady, almost too calm, the kind of calm that comes from seeing the worst sides of human behavior. "Mr. Hale," he said after I explained everything, "bring that bottle to my office tomorrow morning, and whatever you do, do not let your daughter anywhere near your wife again." His certainty chilled me. It meant he had seen similar cases. It meant this was real. The next morning, Evelyn and I sat in his dimly lit office, surrounded by shelves of books on civil codes and criminal procedure. Colton examined the amber bottle beneath a forensic magnifier, his expression tightening as he compared the pill markings with pharmaceutical records he kept on his laptop. When he finished, he leaned back and exhaled slowly. "This is not just suspicious, Mr. Hale. This is criminal. The dosage, the classification, the supplier. Everything points to deliberate administration intended to create cognitive impairment." Evelyn's breath hitched. Hearing it framed so plainly broke something in her. She looked at me with eyes full of grief and disbelief. "My own daughter, Marcus. How could she do this?" Colton answered for me. "Desperation changes people, but it does not excuse what she has done." He recommended we schedule a toxicology test immediately to confirm the presence of the sedative in Evelyn's bloodstream. The results would be the foundation of any legal action. Without hesitation, we drove to the medical center where technicians drew blood samples, noting Evelyn's symptoms and recovery pattern with clinical precision. They promised results within 48 hours. Those hours stretched like an eternity. During that time, I could not stop reviewing the pieces of the puzzle. Serena's financial collapse, her sudden interest in our assets, her insistence on controlling the medication, her rehearsed concern, her calm threat regarding guardianship. Every memory I examined sharpened the picture rather than blurring it. But there was more I needed to know. Late that afternoon, while Evelyn napped, I went outside to retrieve something from my car. As I passed Serena's vacant sedan still parked along the road from her earlier visit, a thought stopped me. The car was quiet, still holding the faint scent of her perfume. Her purse had revealed one bottle. But what if she had hidden others elsewhere? I knew it was wrong to search her vehicle. But I also knew Evelyn's life depended on truths I could not afford to ignore. The glove compartment was empty. The center console held nothing unusual. But under the passenger seat, my fingers brushed something cold and cylindrical. I pulled it out, my breath freezing in my lungs. A second bottle, identical shape, but this time the label was intact. The dosage was higher, the warning stricter, and there was a date of purchase just 2 weeks earlier. Serena had been escalating. The drug she carried at home was mild compared to this one. She had not only planned to continue dosing Evelyn, she had planned to increase it. My knees weakened. I leaned against the car, gripping the bottle with trembling hands. This was no longer a case of panic or misjudgment. This was intention, planning, strategy. I locked the bottle in a metal box in my workshop, then returned inside just as Evelyn stirred from sleep. I did not tell her what I had found. Not yet. The truth would come soon enough, and she had suffered enough for one lifetime. The next morning, Colton called with a tone that confirmed everything before he even spoke. The toxicology results are definitive. The sedative is in her bloodstream. Long-term exposure, consistent dosage. There is no question this was administered intentionally. Evelyn covered her mouth with shaking hands. Tears glistened in her eyes, but she did not collapse this time. She sat tall, steady, determined. "What happens now?" Colton asked. "We go to law enforcement," I said. He paused, then spoke with grave certainty. "Then you need to be prepared for what comes next. Your daughter will face charges. And once this begins, it cannot be undone." That afternoon, Detective Mara Linwood arrived at our home. She was composed, focused, and efficient. The kind of person who carried authority not by force, but by presence. She examined the bottles, the pill box, the records. She asked questions with precision, building a timeline with each detail. When she finished her notes, she looked at me. Mr. Hale, there's enough here to pursue charges for deliberate poisoning, elder abuse, and attempted incapacitation. The district office will review it immediately. She glanced toward the hallway where Evelyn stood quietly, watching with haunted eyes. We will take this seriously. As she closed her notebook, she added something that struck me deeply. People who choose this path seldom stop on their own. They escalate. I thought of the second bottle hidden under Serena's seat. Yes, I whispered. She already had. Detective Linwood left our home with measured steps, promising updates as soon as the district office reviewed the evidence. The weight of her words lingered in the room long after the door closed. Evelyn stood beside me, her hand trembling gently in mine. There was fear in her eyes, but strength too. The strength of someone reclaiming a life she had forgotten she possessed. That strength would soon be tested. The following morning dawned with an unsettling quiet, a quiet so sharp it felt like anticipation breathing against the windows. I found Evelyn sitting in the kitchen with a cup of tea, staring blankly into the steam as though searching for clarity in the swirling patterns. Marcus, she whispered, will she hate us forever for this? I hesitated. My own heart ached with the same question. But some truths do not bend to love. We are not punishing her, I said softly. We are protecting you. And protecting what is right. Before she could answer, tires crunched on the gravel driveway. Serena's car rolled in smoothly, as if nothing in her world had shifted. She stepped out wearing a tailored blazer, her hair perfectly set, a paper bag from a pharmacy dangling from her hand. She walked toward the house with a composure that felt carefully constructed, as though she had polished it in the mirror. "Morning, Mom," she called through the screen door as she let herself in. "I brought a new prescription. The doctor said it might help with the confusion." I stiffened. Evelyn looked at me, her fingers curling around the table edge. "Dad," Serena said lightly as she entered the kitchen, "you look tired. Did you sleep at all?" Before I could respond, a firm knock echoed through the house. Serena froze. Her eyes flicked toward the door, then toward me. I saw fear dance behind them, quick and sharp. Detective Linwood's voice came through the wood with measured firmness. "Police Department, we need to speak with Serena Hale." The pharmacy bag slipped from Serena's fingers, spilling pills across the floor in a soft scatter of plastic. Her face drained of color. "No," she whispered. "Dad, what did you do?" I said nothing. I stood beside Evelyn, both of us silently bracing against the storm breaking through our home. I opened the door. Detective Linwood entered with 2 officers, each with a quiet, composed presence. Serena stepped back as they approached. "Serena Hale," Detective Linwood said, "you are under arrest for deliberate poisoning, elder abuse, and attempted incapacitation." Serena shook her head violently, tears forming instantly. "No. No, please. You do not understand. I was helping her. I was helping both of them. Dad, tell them. Tell them this is all a misunderstanding." Her voice cracked, raw and desperate. For a moment she looked like the child who used to cling to my pant leg when thunderstorms frightened her. But that image collided with the truth of what she had done, and the memories no longer softened the edges. The officers guided her hands behind her back. The metallic click of handcuffs felt like the final punctuation of a sentence we never wanted to write. "Mom," Serena sobbed, looking at Evelyn with broken eyes. "I swear I did not want to hurt you. Please believe me. Please." Evelyn covered her mouth, tears rushing down her cheeks. Seeing her daughter restrained tore at something deep within her. "Serena," Evelyn whispered, her voice trembling, "why did you choose to harm me when all I ever wanted was to love you?" Serena shook with sobs. The officers led her outside, past the curious eyes of neighbors peering from porches, drawn by the flashing lights of the patrol cars. They eased her into the back seat. Her crying echoed faintly even after the door closed. When the car pulled away, Evelyn collapsed into my arms, with a guttural sob that shook through her whole body. "I have lost my daughter," she whispered, "and got her back, only to lose her again." In the days that followed, news of the case spread, quietly at first, then with the force of something too disturbing to ignore. People whispered Serena's name with disbelief. Friends offered condolences mixed with curiosity. I shielded Evelyn from most of it, but we could not escape the reality of what was coming. The trial began 1 month later, in a courtroom humming with a tension that felt almost physical. Serena entered, escorted by guards, dressed in a simple uniform, her hair pulled back. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the confident woman she had always presented to the world. The prosecution laid out the evidence with devastating clarity. The toxicology reports, the veterinary sedatives, the supplier records, the second bottle hidden under her car seat. Dr. Rowan provided expert testimony with a sober expression, detailing how the substance had mimicked dementia. Every detail painted a picture Serena could not escape. Her attorney attempted to argue mental strain, financial distress, momentary lapse in judgment, but the evidence stood firm. Then, in a moment that stunned the courtroom, Serena rose to speak. "Your Honor," she said, her voice trembling but clear, "I want to change my plea." Gasps rippled through the room. Her attorney turned pale. "I did it," Serena said, "and I cannot run from it anymore. I hurt the two people who loved me most. I do not ask for forgiveness. I do not deserve it." She looked directly at Evelyn. "Mom, I stole your mind to save my own life, and I will regret it every day I am alive." Judge Waverly, a stern woman with compassionate eyes, listened in heavy silence before delivering her verdict. Her words cut with clarity. "You did not simply drug your mother. You dismantled her identity. You exploited trust for personal gain." She sentenced Serena to 8 years in state prison, followed by strict supervision and mandatory restitution. When they led her away, Serena looked back only once, her eyes meeting mine with a mixture of sorrow and something like relief. Then she was gone, and we were left with the echo of a family broken beyond recognition. 6 months passed, and life reshaped itself in ways I could never have predicted. The house, once heavy with confusion and distrust, now carried a gentler quiet, not the suffocating silence of dread, but the stillness that follows after a storm has spent itself. Evelyn moved through the rooms with a newfound steadiness, humming softly as she tended her plants or folded laundry with the ease of someone rediscovering familiar routines. Her eyes, once clouded with sedation, now shone with clarity and strength. Every day she regained a little more of the person she once was. Sometimes I watched her from the doorway, marveling not only at her recovery but at the resilience beneath it. She had lost 3 years of her memory, 3 years of her own life to a fog she could not understand. Yet, instead of resenting the missing pieces, she held them gently, like pages torn from a book she still loved. One morning, as sunlight streamed through the kitchen window, I found her preparing pancakes, flipping them with practiced grace. When she turned to me, smiling with a warmth I had missed more than anything, my eyes stung. "You look proud," she teased. "I am," I said simply. "More proud than you know." Our son Adrian visited often now. Guilt had driven him home at first, but love kept him returning. He brought groceries, helped with repairs, stayed for long conversations in the evenings. For years, work had taken him far away, and our family had accepted the distance. But in the wake of everything that happened, he became the steady presence we had needed for so long. "Mom," he said one afternoon while they sat together on the porch, "I should have asked more questions. I should have seen the signs." Evelyn touched his hand gently. "None of us saw them," she replied. "We loved her too much to imagine she could harm us." He lowered his head, swallowing emotion that rose too quickly. "Love can make you blind," she continued softly. "But it can also make you stronger when the truth finally arrives." We visited Serena 3 times during those 6 months. The first visit was the hardest. She entered the visitation room in a plain uniform, her wrists slender without the bracelets she used to wear, her hair pulled back tightly. She looked younger and older at the same time, stripped of the armor she once carried. "Mom," she whispered, tears filling her eyes as she sat down. Evelyn reached across the table. Her hand shook, but did not retreat. "I forgive you, Serena," she said. "I do not understand you. I do not excuse you. But I cannot spend the rest of my life carrying anger. It would destroy me." Serena bowed her head, sobbing softly. For a moment, I saw the child she had been, the child who had clung to Evelyn's leg at the sound of thunder. But that child had grown into a woman shaped by choices that none of us had imagined. Our second visit felt calmer. Serena asked about the garden, about Adrian, about little details that used to fill her life before everything shattered. The third visit brought a kind of acceptance, not peace, not healing, but a quiet acknowledgement of what had been broken and what could never be fully repaired. At home, life stitched itself back together with fragile but determined threads. Evelyn returned to her love of teaching by volunteering at the Community Literacy Center. The children adored her gentle enthusiasm, and I often watched her leaving the house with a small tote bag filled with books. She was reclaiming purpose, one lesson at a time. As for me, I began speaking at community gatherings about elder protection and the subtle dangers that can hide behind family roles. People listened with wide eyes, leaning forward as I described how trust can become a weapon when placed in the wrong hands. After every talk, someone would approach me quietly, sharing a story of their own worry or suspicion. I realized then how common hidden suffering truly was, how many families carried secrets they were too afraid to confront. One evening, after a long day at the literacy center, Evelyn and I sat on the porch together. The sun was sinking beyond the trees, painting the sky with amber streaks. She rested her head on my shoulder. "Do you ever wonder why this happened to us?" she asked softly. I thought for a long moment before answering. Pain does not choose its victims. It arrives in any home, through any door, even the doors we believe are safest. She nodded slowly. "But I also believe," I continued, "that how we survive that pain defines who we are. We faced something unthinkable. And yet, we are still here, still together." Evelyn took my hand. "What is the lesson in all of this, Marcus?" I looked out at the horizon. The answer had taken months to form, but now it came with clarity. That love needs vigilance as much as tenderness. That trusting someone does not mean ignoring the truth when it becomes uncomfortable. And that sometimes protecting the people we love requires us to see them clearly, even when it breaks our hearts. She squeezed my hand gently, and in that moment, I felt the fullness of our survival. Our family was forever changed, but not destroyed. Out of betrayal came truth. Out of darkness came a return to light. And out of unimaginable loss came a new understanding of love. Love that sees. Love that guards. Love that endures. The storm had passed, and we were still standing.